So Priska, can you just share with us the story that touched you the most during the week?
Right. Allow me not to expose their names because it's kind of sensitive, but I'm sure those of us who are interested in stories around women, we saw last Saturday a very disheartening thing that happened in Wange, where two women were walking, going home. Bevela Geza in the communal bathrooms in village A there in Mabiswana in Wange. I don't want to focus on the fact that these women then were shot. One of them was shot in the stomach, one was shot in the chest by supposedly stray bullets. That is shocking enough as it is, but I wanted as a gender activist for us to shift focus and say 2020, under a pandemic conditions, we still have women walking from their homes where they are supposed to be safe and sound under lockdown regulations or any normal setup, going some distance to be able to bath. What does that say about us as a community? That women do not have bathrooms in their homes or close to their homes such that they walk some distances. It speaks to issues of women not having safe spaces. It speaks to issues of women having to struggle to access things like water. It speaks to issues of women not only facing violence in the homes, which we know is a fact, because if we were to ask for statistics under these lockdown regulations, we would see lockdown conditions, we will see how many women are certainly victims of gender-based violence in their homes. But now we have an escalated level of violence also in the public sphere. And for me, that is very worrying and troubling to say, so, oh mama baya pepela ngapi? Because if they do not have services close to them at home so that they can stay home, bebalekele umbubhazwe lo we-COVID-19, and then they try to go and clean themselves, take a bath, refresh, and then they are hit by stray bullets. I don't want the focus to be on the stray bullets. I want the focus to be on women's human rights when we are saying by 2030, we are going to be a middle income country. And we are saying by 2030, we'll have fulfilled the 17 sustainable development goals. Is this the right direction that we are going? Are we on the right trajectory? As a woman, I got really worried and I started to introspect and say, in 2020, women should not be walking in town, in Wange town, to get a bath. A bath should just be next to where you're sleeping, in your bedroom. We're in town after all. We're in 2020. So I got really worried and I was saying to myself, where are we lacking? Where are the local authorities not delivering in terms of women's needs and women's human rights and access to services, access to water, access to education, access to reliable electricity, information and all that? So it really troubled me a lot, and I would want us to discuss to say, what is this? Are we expecting this in 2020?
You know, the most painful thing is that just an hour ago, I was publishing a story on the use of communal bathrooms and toilets in Zishavani by women. And they were also complaining about the COVID situation. 2 weeks ago, we published a documentary on Sitojiwe hostels, where they use communal bathrooms and communal kitchens. And I'm just reminded now when you talk about this of a security guard at Nast, a woman who was bitten by a snake for using the bush because there was no toilet at that spot where she works. And I am thinking that because of the water situation, the Chronicle reported, I think this week, that people were now resorting to using bushes because there was no water at home. So for me, when I think of this whole scenario, we are being pushed out of our homes by the situation and the failure for our basic human rights to be met, to look for water, to look for sewage, I don't know what I would call it, when you need to go and relieve yourself, but you cannot do it at home. To look for firewood, because amagetsi sade ndiseqalisa ukuhamba. So in as much as we're being told, stay at home, stay safe, stay healthy, stay in hygienic circumstances, the circumstances are such that they are forcing us to go out there, be in crowded places, be using the bushes, and be facing the dangers that we are trying to run away from as women. And as you say, in 2020, I do not know what to say. Tan.
I mean, I think as much as we would like to run away from the bullets part, I mean, I think police are directly responsible for our physical security. Because cases on allow mention, I remember a few weeks ago, kwaba cases for who were raped by a gang of Korokoza, the Siatinkun. And my response to Itwiti as a therapy was, sure, please don't encourage because they have a right to energy. But can you please try to encourage the responsible ministry to provide the energy so that they don't stray because they have that right. But a conversation here too. I think our ministries are responsible for ensuring access to our basic needs. Umuntu lawana esasiwafunda la kudala esikole ukuthi umuntu kumele abe lemanzi, kumele abe le energy, kumele abe le lokho. I think kumele sibuyele ekufundiseni khona ukhiyana ngoba ngibona ngani sebakukhohlwa. Okunye ku-basic izinto abantu okumele babe nazo. But because of our situations esilawo, of course le COVID la ikhona, yes, but I think okunye ngama-attitudes especially kuma-ministries achiyeneyo and especially ema-policing, because our physical security, they are directly responsible for that. And yibo asebe-ophena ama-firearms abo, regardless ukuthi kulama-communities around khonapho angafuna ukudinga ukuyageza, ufuna ukuyadinga inkuni or things like that. So it's really tricky. Because how do you then start a conversation with people who have taken an oath ukuthi bazaprotect uZulu, kodwa so yibo abantu asebedubula abantu. So it's really tricky. We can't be blaming COVID-19 for this one, but of course, yes, COVID-19 ikhona iya contributor, but i-problem ibona laba abantu, I think abavule fire on the women. So there is at fault as much as the rest of the responsible institutions and the local councils are also at fault for not providing basics that they are meant to provide.
I totally agree with you, Tando. And for me, this is when I was reading it, I was like, this is the picture of feminization of poverty.
Yeah.
Where the face of poverty has become the woman. And for me, it then, it's like an impetus into something needs to be done about women being in decision making. Because if right now we were to take a step back and say, Guma provincial, Guma district, and now I'm hearing Gulama ward committees, our COVID won't allow. How many women are in those committees making these decisions? Decisions because they know there are also women who need water. There are also women that will need this firewood once these things switch off. These are the basics so that we deal with what we have currently. But more importantly, decisions on how women don't have to go out to look for water because water is a right. They must just open a tap and find water in the tap. Because, I find it irritating when my daughters scream, yeah, my mama zasebuyile, yeah, my mama gets asebuyile, as if that is something. No, it's not normal, lady. It's rubbish. We should be having those things there available. That is why we're in an app and set up. And I think women should be in positions of decision making. If they're not going to give us chairs in those tables where decisions are made, I'm sure we have our own chairs. We can bring our chairs to those tables and tell them, decisions that affect us should be made by us.
Yeah.
Nothing for us without us, so that we start to converse and have, no, we can't have feminization of poverty where the face of poverty has become a woman. That is not right.
I want to say,
but lockdown is necessary. Like just asking in person.
In lockdown, not under the circumstances. I think you can't say you're just locking people down for the sake of it, without putting systems in place. For example, they are not telling us ukuthi siyaliloka down alamanzi sabe siliphathela sizalifakela ama-jojo tank. Every line is a jojo tank where we fill water, and you don't need to go to a community board. They are not telling us who to call nxa kungaba le domestic violence. They are not telling us ukuthi ama-police are patrolling and so we are safe. So at the end of the day, it's just on paper there's a lockdown, but people still have to go out and look for food and look for the basic provisions. It just doesn't make sense. And Mama Laba, I wanted to say, Tando, if the stray bullet hadn't hit Mama Laba, it would have hit anyone else. But unfortunately, because of our needs, Mama, you cannot go as a woman for a day and a half or longer ungagezanga. Ungazuthi uyaqinisela. Vele umzimba wakho uyazenza wodwa ukuthi sokumele uyogeza. And therefore, even ulamanzi endlini, nxa ungela bathroom eduzane, usuzaphuma uyodinga okulikhona. Okulikhona kwangikhona enxe akukho safe. Usuzadlwengulwa kumbe ulunywe inyoka in 2020. Indeed, when you talk about us taking positions of power, my question is, the women that we have right now in leadership, are they even trying? Is the quota system even working? Topic foot.
No, but I think it's relevant. It's still relevant because we are saying if poverty keeps on taking a female face because of a lack of proper representation in decision making. Ukuthi umuntu uzayenza ama decision ekwazi ukuthi umama kumele ageze, umama kumele abe lamanzi, abe lenkuni and stuff like that. And I think ama leaders ethu wonke, I think sengingawagoqela nje in one bracket, male or female, they've shunned away khonokhana ukucabanga kwe basic development basic phela le ukuthi lo mntwana ku A level ungambuza ukuthi i-community nxa asithi you are a one day leader ufuna ukwenzelani i-community yakho. Umntwana lwana uyatshela ukuthi mina i-community yami ngifuna ibe lamanzi, ngifuna ibe lama-gets ngoku basic, but bona sebakukhohlwa nje konke lokho ukuthi why besezikhundleni abakuzwo khathesi.
Yeah,
I totally agree with Tando, and you know my position on that one will see in terms of proportional representation and how I feel about it, because sometimes I get so I don't know. I'll leave it at that.
Anyway, thank you so much. I think let's move on to the last one. Tando, you had one interesting topic that you wanted to delve on.
All right, so this topic is actually kind of a bit close to my heart because I'm history. I used to learn and teach history at some point in my life, and I get worked up if I see history being deleted. It could be good history, it could be bad history, but if I see it being deleted, like I get worked up. So indaba engilayo lamhla indaba eyokuthi i-Cape to Cairo, a historic building in Bulawayo, sebefuna ukuyichinja from what it stands for, bayithengisele i-Judiciary Services Commission. So protecting our history is also very important in us knowing who we are as a people. I remember last year, before this whole COVID mambo jumbo, I went to Kenya for Africa Crossroads. And when I got there, I realized how connected we are as Africa, as abantu. And the connection le esilayo yesenza sibe le spirit lesane sobuntu. And the connection yangikhona bayitracer isuka koBulawayo, and I learned it sengikhona ngale ukuthi Gauteng Bulawayo is actually a center kokuconnecta iAfrica. And it was because of that whole Dreammaker roads, Cape Town to Cairo. And from uBulawayo kwaba le headquarters eze-railways, i-railways yasuka lapha isiya uloliwe nxa lisamkhumbula to South Africa and to the rest of Africa. So that's a history that we have, and amongst that history kule ndaba ye-jazz phakathi. OJudith Sephuma labo wawubathola behamba kuloliwe khonapha koBulawayo, oYumasekela bebuya lengoma zabo Stimela etc. So that's a lot of rich history that we have as a people. If we tap back, we might like start to realize who we are and how we are connected and how we really should be relating with each other as a people. In Zimbabwe, as it is right now, we have a lot of issues that we are currently facing to do with our unity and to do with our identities. If you look at Bulawayo, ukusuka kwabantu besiya eGoli, besiyadinga umsebenzi kwaqhaza ngazwane anezikhathi zabololiwe, and lakhathesi sokuyithing, but kuyithing sokukhoze a lot of divisions within our society. We have a lot of social issues. Indaba yabantwana nalesike sakhuluma ngayo yokuzithwala, abantwana abaningi abasela abantu ababakhangeleyo nxa bekhula. We have a lot of child-headed families, and a whole lot of issues emanate from that history that we then try to run away from, that we then try to delete. So why should we keep on deleting our history? Because I'm sure in some parts of the country I've heard of a Holocaust museum, not just a history, history, but history, there are lessons to be learned from there, and in lessons to be learned from there, it has to be preserved so that our generations won't really be repeating the same mistakes. And when we want to do our way with buildings that are part of our history, and then I think we are not really doing justice to the next generations. Le Cape to Cairo, uthunga khanyela ngapho ukhanyele straight eCape Town, ukhanyele ngapho ukhanyele straight eCairo. So Australiana gabe sokuyi hearsay. Isingasekho as preserved as we would like it. I mean, I would like to see Zimbabwe like moving with the times. Oh, ikhona lona leliyana le Cape to Cairo preserve lalo lisiba yilokhu zenini, maybe a jazz museum or something that represents our history as a city. But now, as it is, we realize that is not happening. But at the same time, there are quite a number of laws that talk to preserving history, that talk to our heritage. See, the National Museums and Monuments Act, iloke izama aligned to the Constitution, but it's something that exists to protect some of these structures, and yet the same judiciary is sorry, Prisk. But also, Lebuila City Council in a mandate, I could not readily find e-act online, which is something that we should talk to them about. Ezinye lezi zinto kumele zibe readily available online, singadinganga ukuya eCity Hall. So imithetho ikhona, and at the same time abantu baphomba ukuzenzela umathanda elizweni, regardless of ukuthi abantu bangobani, sifuna ukwenzani. I think something has to be done to get that voice of people back in there.
Yeah. It really pained me because I tweeted something this morning. And when you're talking now about that corner, I'm looking at that corner, I'm looking at the top block across the road, I'm looking at City Hall up in the craft center, the Gyrosty Craft Center. And I'm thinking, my God, can they not see the amount of history and heritage and Bulawayo sentiment that is there in just that corner, that they can preserve and nurture and build around and even get revenue from? I understand the Cape to Cairo doesn't belong to the city council, but I think there should be laws that then force, even if you own a building, at least preserve the outlook of it. Pagat, I know in other countries, you can renovate the inside, but they'll give you something, a government text or something, to make sure that you maintain and preserve the outlook and make sure that at least a semblance of the history and heritage of that city is maintained. I'm not sure how far we have gone as a city to do that, but I realize that a number of buildings are being broken down, being renovated, being modernized, and yet they are so much linked to our history. When I think of Heifelis and its old exotic design and what it is now after they renovated it, I am pained, because as much as we want our city to modernize, there are some aspects of it that just keep Bulawayo as Bulawayo and make it a historic tourist attraction. So yeah, I really do agree with you, Uti. As a people, we must put our foot. Maybe as a citizen, we've been slacking in terms of being active citizens and participating, because that place I hear has been on sale for 2 years. How did we not know that? And how did we not support that place enough for it to stay afloat? And if we were very active citizens and very in touch with our council, maybe ngabe khathi sesibhale a petition to the owners and to council to say, we understand you want to sell it, but siyacela, do not change it to an extent yokuthi you lose the heritage. So Tina, as citizens, what role are we playing Lati to preserve that history? Or we're just the people that will make noise ngaso kuwonakala. But nxa kusese right, sebephuma ukuchazwa khona kule Cape to Cairo, and we just move on. So yeah, that issue really touched me, Tando, and I think it made me think about my role in the big jigsaw puzzle of Bulawayo citizenry. What role am I playing in keeping Bulawayo the heritage, rich heritage site or city that it is?
Like, yeah. Just to add briefly before you come in, Priska, Mombasa is blue and white. Ungathenga i-building edorobheni kuthiwa lokhu ngala ipenda kumbunga yakha kumele uyipende blue and white. Umthetho vele ukhona owaziwayo. So I think
that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we do need, if we are not going to have a national Building Beautification Act per se, at least let's have it as AMA regulations, our city council. And we know because of the stone buildings that we have, that could be the color for Bulawayo, brown and cream and with a bit of tinged orange, so that when the sun is just rising, it gives this amazing glow to the whole city. And I was just also thinking, as a former history teacher, as Tando was saying, to say, look at the link from the National Art Gallery, which at one time was the biggest at the National Museum. I mean, it was the biggest in south of the Sahara in terms of the number of specimens that are there. Wow. If you go to the Locomotive Museum also, it's one with the oldest things in south of the Sahara. And then you have the Cape to Cairo also. And the owners, when they were selling, as Busi is rightly saying, as citizens of Bulawayo, we should have come up and did some GoFundMe and renovated that place so that you have some simulation rooms where you can play the old Stimela music, the raperies, and these young children of ours with their bubblegum music get to appreciate real music and the social message that music used to carry and how it influenced in terms of independence movements in the SADC countries. You know, there is so much that is linked to Cape to Cairo and the relationships that we then have with our neighboring countries. I don't know whether now it's going to be called the Master's Office and they remove those iconic things. No, it's paining me. Sure, and I'm thinking to myself, would it not have been ideal for a Master's Office to have been housed in Mhlahlandlela? Because aren't you have a register estate? You know, estate of a dead person, and you get the death certificate from Gomsitel. and then you cross the road and get to Mhlahlandlela and register the estate. I mean, for me, in a planning sense, that would have been ideal. Or at least as Zimdef, it's another government building which has now tenants and most of them are no longer there. They could have moved into 2 floors or thereabouts, and it's closer to Tretgold and the high courts, which makes sense. But why go to Cape to Cairo? I mean, it's got such sentimental value for us as people of Bulawayo. Please.
And break it down and try to renovate it into offices. It doesn't make sense at all.
Oh, no, it doesn't. I don't know. Maybe we're being sentimental, but really, that's the core of who Bulawayo is. You know, when you're looking at those, like when it used to be Barclays, remember when you would go into Barclays, you'll see the old photos of 1896, the ones of 1903. That will show you where Bulawayo was. And you find Cape to Cairo was already there with horse-drawn carriages and things like that. And you ask yourself, wow, so this is how far we've gone. But now when it's no longer...
I-building oyimentionayo eBarclays, ungangena eBarclays phakathi kumodern. Kubuntofontofo, kurenovatiwe, ku-right. Ungangena phakathi, but iphandle lokho kuyi-same old lokho zeninyo naliyana.
Exactly, girls. Ay, man. I don't know.
But I think really, kumele sibe le plan as citizens, not kumelela kuze kumoshakale kakhulu like now.
Yeah.
But lakho lokho njalo sethi ngakwanisa ukuyazibophelela khona ngale njengabazibophelele ezihlahleni. With the opportunities ezifana namapolisa.
Yeah, guys, I think moving forward, maybe as citizens, let's identify those buildings that have sentimental value, buildings that can tell the story of Bulawayo, buildings that can preserve for future generations to say this is where we have come from, this is where maybe we aspire to be, but we will not change our history because of our future. And take them to city council as citizens and say, hayi siyazwisisa sibili ukuthi into ziyachinja, asilamali kasilamandla kodwa besicela if you can at least preserve these buildings for us. Lathi besitshele what we need to do to contribute to that preservation. Maybe that would work. Let's be proactive. Singakhali kuphela sidangale, but let's cry and preserve the remaining buildings that are still there. Ngoba kusasa kuzathiwa i-art gallery sihamba, kuzakuthiwa i-Justice Center sihamba, kuzathiwa abantu baphambi kwesitholi labana sebebaxotsha sebefuna ukufaka something else. And for us, that is like killing the spirit of who we are. When we come to Bulawayo, xa uke uhamba emazweni, you know, when people land, they want to see familiarity to an extent. Yeah. So yeah,
and it's really not just issue building kuphela. There's a lot of our history that we are not preserving. Khona omunye umntwana oke wafika kimi lamhle ekuseni lapha esithi mina ngilinguni kodwa isindebele eqhoqho lesiyana angisasazi. Can we do something online maybe okuyi-application nyana okufundisa isindebele sona lesiyana? And not just languages. There's a lot of history of ours that we innovation to preserve as well. Siyakho kungama-museum here and there emakhoneni upresident bantsho just very recently bekhuluma nge-tourism industry. I think kumele sikhulume sisenza ukuthi that industry really needs to be revived across the country, not just the follows.
Very true. During Heroes, I was doing a documentary on Ubabunkomo, rather Zipra women. And we're at the museum, Gababunkomo, and we're showing Kichliga Mama Fuyana. And she was keeping her old traditional kitchen stuff, Amadio, Tulan. And I'm thinking we could have an African Heritage Museum where they show us a typical African kitchen. You know, have the original. They were showing us also indugu, 20 van. Different types of indugu. And Obaba Gudala indugu was like your symbol of being the father, the head of the house. And if we had a museum that would show what indugu, can you imagine how much history and learning our children would have from just touring for a day, something like that? So yeah, guys, it really touched my heart, and I really hope Uti as a people will step up and do something. Me and myself, ngizadinga ukuyibhasi ngikuqume phezulu ngichaya ama-tours laphana koBulawayo. I-tour bus eyajikisa abantu ngakoBulawayo. It's a dream that I've had for a while, but I'm glad I'm not the only one who's thinking of it. So if we put our heads together, maybe it's something that we could do.
Yeah. It's very doable.
Yeah. Otherwise, our time is slowly running out, but we have exhausted our stories. I'd like to thank you very much, Bosisibami, for your very well-informed and articulate comments on the stories that you brought forth today. It's very eye-opening, and I hope they get to think deeply about these things, which may seem insignificant. Maybe they seem like once-off incidents. For example, it might seem like incident, but it gets us thinking about the state of our service delivery, the state of women and their rights in our country, and also the state of security. What are the police mandates to say? Can you just shoot in public? And things like that. So when we talk about these issues, ladies, it gets us thinking, it gets other women also thinking and talking, and I appreciate your being here and taking time. And I hope I can abuse you again in future.
Yeah,
we are on standby to be abused. Thank you for having us.
All right, Dali, take care, Auntie.
All right, bye.
Bye.